Being better understood and accepted in modern society is a common goal, and there are many witches and warlocks burning candles, hoping for your understanding. And now, what about you? Could you be a witch or warlock? You may think it strange a person like yourself, sensible, kind, and good-looking, could go through life without knowing if you're a witch or warlock. But most people don't know until they contact someone in a realm of witchcraft and are put through a series of tests. I'd guess that 1 out of every 1,000 people are born a witch or warlock. So you've got a slight chance. You must think you've got a chance, too. Now let's get down to the exciting business of determining if you are or if you ain't. I'll be your guide. I'll lead you to the magic spot where you will decide if you are a witch or warlock. It's your decision. Now there's a lot of questions to be answered before you can decide. Don't be discouraged if your answers don't come the first time you hear the question. There are no right or wrong answers. You may have to listen 6 or 7 times before your mind can be coaxed to reach back through the years for a piece of the puzzle, but it's worth it. Try listening to this part by yourself, at midnight. The stroke of midnight is limbo. It's the end and the beginning. It's when your mind and your body offers the least resistance. And burn a large white candle on a red candle holder near your phonograph. On either side of the candle, burn orange blossom incense in gold incense burners. Wear a loose, flowing white robe. White is the color of spiritualism, purification, and mind-searching. You should wear nothing under the robe so that your body will be totally relaxed and receptive. You must not drink or smoke as you listen. Your mind must be totally occupied with my voice. Now lean back and relax, and don't be afraid. I'll be your guide. Everything you'll discover has already been. Let the days that were turn back. Look for the child that you once were. Find the earliest memories of your mind. That's where you began, and that's where we'll begin. Is there a history of witchcraft in your immediate family? Aunts, uncles, a strange cousin? If the answer is yes, you're off to a flying start. In my case, my 2nd generation and my 4th generation grandmothers on my father's side were both witches, and they were burned at the stake to prove it. There are certain physical signs that are sometimes clues, but they are not in any way conclusive answers. Being born with eyes of different colors, birthmark shaped like a crucifix, 2-toned hair, being born the 7th child of the 7th child. My 2nd generation grandmother looked just like my 4th generation grandmother, and my facial features are exactly the same as my grandmother's. A coincidence? Maybe, but both of these women were under 5 feet tall, weighed 90 pounds, were born albinos, and so was I. After the 2nd week of life, each of us had our eyes turned from pink to blue. Based on these facts, I know I am the reincarnation of my grandmothers. And this isn't as strange as it first sounds. Even the Bible makes several references to reincarnation. Jesus hit Nicodemus with a line that was, "No man ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven." Jeremiah said God had told him that he had been on earth before in somebody else's body. Sounds like a little reincarnation, doesn't it? So if you've got the reincarnation chills, don't worry about it. It's real, and a lot of people are beginning to turn on to it. Now think back. Were you an exceptional child?
Do you have memories of an unusually early age?
Did you walk when you were still quite young?
Did you talk when you were still quite young?
As a child, were you unusually bright?
Were you born with a photographic memory?
Were you constantly told you seem a lot older than your age? You might be centuries older. Though I didn't have a photographic mind as a child, I was unique in several other ways. I was walking and talking by the time I was a year old, and at the age of 3, after visiting my grandmother's house, I started crying. My mother asked me why, and I told her, "Grandma's going to die tomorrow." Though they certainly tried, no one could convince me otherwise, and my grandmother did die the next day. I have also foreseen the death in my family of an uncle, an aunt, and a stepsister. When I still was quite young, relatives who had died before I was born began to appear and talk to me. My grandfather on my father's side was the first. Like most children, I was known to be pretty destructive. Because of this, a family album was always kept under lock and key. So when I woke up in the middle of the night and found a man I'd never seen before sitting at the end of my bed, I was more than a little shook. He asked if I knew who he was. I said no, and I asked if my daddy knew he was there. He said no and told me he was my grandfather. He was very pleasant, and I sat up as we talked. I remember he told me a story which made me laugh. Then he said he had to go and asked if he could tuck me in. As he pulled the covers around me, he gave me a tickle and then a light kiss. His touch was very warm. In the morning I told my parents about talking with Grandpa. They didn't pay any attention to me till I described him. Then my dad looked surprised and got our family album. He showed me a picture and asked if that was a man. I said it was, and he got very angry and said that was my grandfather who had died before I was born. My dad told me never to talk about it again, and so I didn't. But my grandfather continued to visit me for years. If your childhood is dotted with similar examples, there's a good chance you were born a witch or warlock.